Welcome back to the Joust About Careers podcast. This is the place to learn about careers from the people who are actually doing the work every day. I'm your host, Brian Bratt, and this week's guest is 2011 Van Buren graduate Hannah Shank, a Transport Operations Supervisor at Marathon Petroleum Corporation. In this episode, Hannah shares how a typical day looks for her, how studying abroad led her to teaching in Austria, what playing college softball taught her, and much more. Whether you are interested in a career in the transportation field or are still exploring your options, I hope that what Hannah shares today will help all of you make better career decisions and have fulfilling career journeys. Enjoy the show. Welcome back to the last episode of the Joust About Careers podcast for the 24-25 school year. Today we have 2011 Van Buren graduate Hannah Shank with us, and she's going to talk a little bit about her career. So Hannah, thank you very much for being here. And I'd love to start out by just hearing, how does a typical day look for you as a Transport Operations Supervisor for Marathon Petroleum?
Yes, that's a great question. Every day is very different. So I would say a typical day, I am in the office and I look at different things, our safety metrics, different reporting systems, and look at our maintenance schedule. I work very closely with all of my support groups, so my maintenance teams, my safety teams, my HR teams, and then I pretty much get started with, if I have meetings, I typically will have, anywhere from 2 to 5 meetings a day. And I meet with my team here in Utah. So I have one fleet here in Salt Lake that I help support. There's another team out in Roosevelt, Utah, and we work very, very closely together. So there's a supervisor out there, and then we have a manager here right now. There's also a supervisor in training that we have here. So, helping develop the next set of leaders. And then around 12:30 starts my shift change. So that's when my drivers will come in and they are done for the day, or they're starting their day, and helping them with whatever they need. If they have something wrong with their truck, trailers, anything like that, I would help address those issues. If they need any supplies, anything to do with maybe their HR stuff. So my HR person actually sits in California. So if there's some smaller things that I can help tackle for them, I help with them with that. And then that will go through about 6:30, 7 o'clock at night.
Okay. So a busy day sounds like a lot of time in the office. Do you ever spend any time out of the office, visiting, oil depots, etc.?
Yes. So that's actually the best part of the job, is to be actually out in the field and getting out of the office. So we do ride-alongs. So I'll go with my drivers out to the oil field, and they either will hook up to buy the oil, or they actually have to go and, or they'll buy the oil, or they'll just hook up and get the oil, load it, and then bring it back to an offload facility. So my fleet here will go to Salt Lake City, the refinery, and offload there. Sometimes I'll just go out and visit with producers or the offload facilities, make sure that everything's in good shape. So even yesterday, I had to go over to the refinery and just check some things out just for safety precautions.
Right. When I think transportation, I think a lot of the things you've just said, talking about the trucks and so forth. I don't often think of the people in your position who are overseeing all of that and just making sure everything's running smoothly. Are there other aspects of the transportation industry that maybe are forgotten or easily missed just because they aren't as obvious as the trucks driving down the highway?
For us, safety is a big one. And I'm on call. I rotate on call. So we have 24/7 operations. And in Utah, because they have to go over a couple mountain passes, that requires them to chain up their tires. And there's a lot of safety things that some people in the community will see. So if they're driving on that road, there's chain up areas, so they could see that. As far as it is on the well pads, there are a lot of safety hazards. So if there's an on-site drilling going on, if they could have something just with their load up. So if they go to hook up a hose, but the fitting isn't correct, just different safety mechanisms are in place. And then on the back end, there's always so many moving parts because essentially each fleet is its own business. So trying to make sure that we're running efficiently, we're not damaging equipment. If a truck goes down, how long is it going to be down for? Just very different parts of the business that we handle on the back end that even my drivers wouldn't see on a daily basis that we handle.
That's interesting. Thinking about safety. Yeah, I didn't even think about that, but yeah, I'm sure that's huge. And then, yeah, people maintaining the trucks. And so that transportation industry, it's a lot more than just that driver driving down the road. A lot of people have worked to make sure that person can do that safely and effectively. And I think that's interesting with the chains. Northwest Ohio, not a whole lot of chains on tires here in winter. Um, but that is really interesting. And thinking about living in Utah, how is that different from living in Findlay, Ohio?
It's very different. So I actually equate it to living in Austria. So I lived in Austria for a year, and we're surrounded by beautiful mountains that are snow covered at the top. And because of the religion here, things are closed on Sundays. And that's exactly how it was in Austria as well, due to the religion. The day to day it's just like a city. You got traffic in the morning, traffic in the evening, and you want to miss rush hour. But for the most part, it feels pretty similar to like being in a big city. There's not really one that I can equate it to in the Midwest, only because the mountains, the mountains are amazing to look at. You're surrounded by them. And I would say things are a lot more spread out here than they are back in the Midwest. Everything is pretty close. You can be anywhere in a couple hours. Here, if I wanted to go to Vegas, it's at least 5.5 hours down there. Even to get to the other fleet in Utah, it's a good 2.5 hours.
Okay. Now you talked about the chains on the tires, and then you said, "Hey, there's always snow on the mountains." I mean, do they have to have chains even in the middle of the summer, or is the pass not that high in altitude that summer months they can go without the chains?
Yes, so summer months they can go without the chains through the mountain passes, but they are required to have them on the trucks at all times, only because when they go on the lease roads to get to the well pads, those aren't paved roads.
Okay.
So if it gets muddy, then they would have to chain up as well.
Okay. So not just for snow, mud also. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So you were featured in a November 2024 article about Marathon Petroleum being a top company for women to work in transportation. That was the third year in a row that Marathon had received that award from the Women in Trucking Association. Is the transportation industry a difficult place for women to work? And what advice would you give to women who are thinking about getting into the transportation industry?
So for crude specifically, I actually do not have any females in my fleet, but we have quite a few in my other Utah fleet. But it is difficult, right? Historically, it was a male-dominated field. And for transportation as a whole, I think we're really breaking a lot of barriers. I think this is a great organization that we've partnered with, and to show that anyone can do it if you work hard enough, right? And as far as recommendations go, start off by getting your CDL, get some experience, and then because hazmat, we're hauling hazmat material. That is already a harder division to get into. There are more requirements. You need more endorsements on your license, other than if you were to just go into freight. But definitely just go out there, get experience, get on the roads, get some miles in, and then work your way up. I would tell anyone that, not just females. It goes for anyone that's looking into hauling petroleum or crude in the future. You have to start somewhere, right? And now more than ever, we need truck drivers. Think about Amazon and how much that's taken off. UPS, FedEx. There's a bunch of companies that I think that we kind of forget about, right? Like the small things of how does my package get to my door? And it works with a lot of different products rather than just freight. But your gasoline, how does it get to the gas station? Propane's another big one. We normally see that in winter, but it's a constantly moving thing. Mm-hmm. So, but to get into hazmat specifically, it's good to have experience.
Right. When you were in high school, did you ever foresee yourself being in the position you are in today? What were your plans when you graduated?
Yeah, I never saw that. So I think, growing up there, a lot of people worked at Marathon, their parents worked at Marathon, and I didn't want to stay in Findlay. That was something that I was like, I want to go out and see the world. When I graduated, I was going to school and I was pre-law, and I was bound to go to law school. And you got to go with the tides. You don't know. I think we're so set when we leave high school of what we're going to do. And I think when you go to college, the world is your oyster, right? You have so many different avenues that you could go. You start finding different interests. So for me, I ended up studying Germanic studies and finance. So didn't go to law school. And I think that's the big thing that it was really hard for me to cope with, that, hey, I had my life planned out for me at the age of 18, and it didn't turn out at all what I thought it was going to. There's a part of me that the first semester I went to school, I remember going to a panel of upperclassmen, and somebody talked about studying abroad. And as soon as that person talked about it, I was like, I'm doing that. I'm going to go abroad. I can do it. I think that would be a great experience. I've always wanted to travel the world. So when I went to Ohio State, I then decided the stars were aligned, because my study abroad trip ended up being subsidized to a third of the cost.
Oh.
So it really worked out for me. But I studied abroad and I fell in love with the culture, the language, and decided I'm going to major in this. So I think that was just something, you don't know where life is going to take you, and you have to be open to the different avenues that open up to you.
Right. Experience, again, I hear it over and over, and I've experienced it in my own life. We just make decisions based on the experiences we have. Without those experiences, we can think we know where we're going, but until we actually do something, it makes it very difficult to make it reality. So did you have a lot of options for your study abroad, and you just happened to decide to go to, let's see, you went to Austria, is that right?
Yes.
Okay,
yes,
so
Salzburg.
Were there other places you could have gone? And again, who knows how your life would have looked if you'd gone those other directions, or was it always Austria was the one that just immediately was always right there for you?
So Bowling Green has a partnership with Salzburg, and that's when I applied for that program for grad school. I knew that, that would be my opportunity, and that's where I would be going. So for me, it it was pretty much set at that time. Like if I got into the program, I'd be going to Austria. And I had been to Austria. I hadn't really fully experienced Austria. I just went when I was over in Europe, one of the times that I had gone prior to the program. And it opened up so many doors for me. I actually ended up teaching, and so I tutored in Austria for English, and then I also taught the German language in Austria. And then I came back and I taught at Bowling Green, and it just wasn't in the cards for me to continue on. So, of course, I was in Finley at that time, and I applied for Cooper and I applied for Marathon, and I actually got offers from both, but ended up taking the position with Marathon instead, and I don't regret it whatsoever.
Right, right. Now, your teaching, um, obviously, is part of your grad program and things like that. Are you a fluent German speaker, or and does that ever come into play in your current position? Have you been able to use that at all?
So, yeah, that's another good question. We do not have assets over in Germany, so it really doesn't play too big of a role. As far as fluency goes, it's a use it or lose it situation with foreign language.
Right.
Unfortunately, I have not used it since I stopped teaching. There's not really been much opportunity. So not a lot of German speakers in the U.S., or at least the places that I've been.
Right.
But in El Paso, I was down in El Paso filling in for a supervisor down there, and they actually had a German speaker in their fleet. And that was really fun because I got to practice my German.
Right.
So you really do have to take advantages of those opportunities that you get when they come up. But currently, no, I don't use my German language. Actually, one of my goals for this year is to really dive into Spanish. I have a lot of Spanish speakers in my fleet. So that's my next goal.
Okay, yeah, it's a great goal to have. You worked at Clouse Construction for quite a while, and I think that was while you were in school, and maybe even a little bit after some of your schooling. How did that experience help you? And obviously, you're not working in construction right now, but again, we talked about experiences, how those help shape us, and I guess what benefits have you seen from having that experience with Clouse?
Yeah. So Clouse, my dad worked at Clouse, and I remember one summer he's like, "You got to get a job," and I was like, "Okay." He's like, "You can't just sit by the pool every day." I was like, "Darn, okay." So I worked for him in the field, and I'm working with construction workers. I don't know anything about construction, so it was very eye-opening to see what happens in such a laborious position, and you really learn to build respect for what goes on in that part of the business. Another position that I had there was helping out with marketing, so I got to use some of my marketing skills. But I think the biggest thing that I took away from that was, especially now, right? If you were to talk about, blue collar, white collar positions, is you still treat everyone the same, and learning how to communicate with people that might not understand high level things, but how do you translate that down to make it almost put things in layman's terms? And I mean, mechanically, it helped me because working with different mechanical structures and whatnot, and tools and just different terminology, it helped me, especially with the trucks and maintenance and different things like that. that definitely helped me out a lot.
Right. Isn't that amazing how that experience way back then, before you had even thought about transportation, is ending up helping you a little bit?
Hmm.
As you think about your current position, what are some of the more interesting and some of the more challenging aspects uh, as a operations supervisor that if someone had this as a career goal, they would want to be aware of before they take that leap?
For me, the biggest thing is when I was like even in high school, um, you know, being on sports teams, having leadership positions or skills, developing those, working with other people, and a diverse group of people, right? So for me, I did show choir. I was an athlete. There were different avenues that I took. I worked in yearbook. Um, you get to expose yourself to so many different types of people and learning to work with so many different types of people. That makes you very, very valuable. The other thing that I think sports really helped me with was becoming coachable. And that if you want to go and play college sports, you have to be coachable. In life, the same aspect applies. So if you want to get in a career that you don't have any experience in, you need to be adaptable. You need to be coachable. You have to have a willingness to learn. In my career now, currently, everything's constantly changing, whether it's a DOT regulation, whether it's a company policy. You have to be willing to adapt. And if you're not, it's going to make it very challenging for people to want to promote you.
Talked a little bit about playing softball in college and so forth. How difficult was that to balance school, sports? I know a lot of students, I think have dreams of doing that. And I think we see the glamour on TV and so forth, but obviously there's a lot that happens behind the scenes. What can you tell us about your experience playing college softball?
College softball was great. It's, we come from a very small school, and yeah, you could be the greatest. But when you're out there, and I played travel softball growing up, and, even then, you might be the greatest at these tournaments. Doesn't mean that you're going to be the greatest when you go to college. So you're really competing constantly every day, day in, day out. You're competing with others. You're competing with people that you're playing against that you don't know what their work ethic's like. It's a commitment. I wish I could go back to those days where I was running constantly and in shape and lifting weights, and I would really love to get back into that shape. Uh, but it's a huge time commitment. My team was like my family, which was great. We're very close, and those relationships, they last for a lifetime. But as far as the challenges, it really takes a mental toll on you to be able to keep up with your studies and keep up with the sport and have a personal life. Learning to juggle all of that is not easy. I think that's why you see a lot of athletes, their friends are their teammates, and they are either in classes or they're at the weight room. But it is hard to juggle. I there's only so many professionals out there that make it, right?
Right, right.
It's definitely challenging. For me, I knew that after 2 years, I was done. I wanted to study abroad. That was something that really stayed with me. I needed to open myself up to those opportunities, and Ohio State did that. There's a lot that goes into making those decisions, but I have a weird career path. So for me, uh, it was I made all of these different opportunities for myself. So you really have to be willing to do that. And be open to whatever door that opens.
Well, Hannah, you've shared a lot of really good insights. And to wrap up, I'd love to hear, and maybe you've already answered this a little bit, but maybe you'll go a different direction. We'll see. What do you know now about careers that you wish you had known when you were in high school?
I'm a very stubborn person. So even if somebody would have told me it when I was 17, 18 years old, I don't know that I would have listened. But just be open to wherever the world might take you, and your values might change, your career path might change, but be willing to accept anything that comes your way. You never know where it's going to take you, and make those connections. Be very open to the opportunities that present themselves, and don't be afraid that your life might not work out how you have it planned right now.
Because maybe it'll end up being better than you had even planned. And again, I don't know if you think that or not, but again, I agree 100% that, we get these things in our minds and, well, if it doesn't go this way, it's a failure. No, it's just different. So Hannah, really interesting to talk to you. I've never been to Utah. Maybe I'll have to come out to Utah someday and drive through a mountain pass. I will make sure I do it during the summer. That's for sure. So,
oh yeah.
So thank you very much, and good luck as you continue your career journey.
Thank you, Mr. Bratt.
If you liked this Joust About Careers episode, you can explore previous episodes and highlights to learn about even more careers of Van Buren graduates. To be sure you don't miss upcoming episodes, please click subscribe on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform so you'll know when the next episode is released. Thank you for spending a portion of your day with us, and we hope you will continue to prepare for your future by learning just about careers.